will be on achieving work-life balance, and our panel speakers will be sharing their experiences and thoughts on it. We encourage all of you to actively participate in discussion by sharing and asking questions along the way. You can either use chat function, the reaction function at the bottom, or just unmute yourself anytime to ask. There will be poll questions posted along the way, and I highly encourage all of you to answer them. Also, this is a disclaimer that we all agree that panelists and all who participate speak off the record from their personal experience and not in any way for the companies, unless specified otherwise. The session will be recorded, but it will not be circulated unless consent is given. The discussion will be led by Gandhi, who is the chair of WomenInPharma ISP Singapore and director and senior consultant at Geean Private Limited. I would like to welcome our panelists. The first one being Amy Neary, who is the head of PayPal APAC Design Thinking. Geoffrey Brown, who is QAQC manager at Schneider Electric Singapore and conference chair of ISP Singapore. Moving on, Harpreet Kaur, who is an associate director at Moody's Analytics. Martina Maurer, who is the chief transformation officer at Terra Asia Consulting, a positive psychologist, consultant, coach, and a trainer. Julia, I will now pass the time over to you.
Thanks, Harshita. Thanks for introducing all of us. Hello, as Harshita mentioned, I'm Julia, and I will be moderating this panel discussion. Panelists, again, we are grateful to you for sharing your time and experience with us. Audience, happy to have you on board and hope you enjoyed this session. This is one of the events run by the Women in Pharma group of the ISP Singapore affiliate. ISPE stands for International Society of Pharmaceutical Engineering. Just to put things into perspective, I will do a short intro to the topic for today's panel discussion, which is achieving improved work-life balance. Now, how is work-life balance defined? As definitions go, a common one involves looking at how working people manage time spent at and outside of work. Time outside may include family responsibilities, other outside interests, hobbies. But we all agree that work-life balance is an important aspect of a healthy life environment, and minimally, it helps reduce stress, makes one more productive, prevents burnout in the workplace, and many more benefits. All the reasons why work-life balance is important are guidelines for how to start creating a more balanced life. And you begin by prioritizing what's truly important, taking control of things you can, and simplify life, like letting go of non-priorities, and especially things like trying to do all or have it all. All this requires making tough choices. So it will be interesting to hear from the panelists on discussions that can help us make these difficult decisions. Let me make it clear that work-life balance is important for everyone, even though some people think it's something that only or at least mostly women want. But that's not true. Men surely care about having balanced lives too. Let's see what Jeff has to say later on. A note to the audience, as Harshita mentioned, we're going to have poll questions, and these will follow the talking points. So after the talking point, there'll be a poll question based on that. And so please answer the poll questions, because your answers will help the panelists to make the responses specific and relevant. We now move on to the talking points. The first one is make work-life balance planning a habit. We have a couple of poll questions here. Yeah, here they come up. Please respond.
Can you see the results?
Yes. Okay. With this, I'm going to ask Martina to comment on this.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it is very interesting. So people answered, are you satisfied with your work-life balance? And they say they are mostly satisfied. And I think we all have our interventions to do that. But we are looking at how can you be more satisfied? How can you really increase your work-life balance? And the second point, do you set clear boundaries between work and personal life? It looks like a lot of people do set boundaries, but we all know that we always sacrifice our free time or our family time or time spending with friends for dinners to work. If something urgent comes up, we always sacrifice that. So, and I think that is something we really have to look into it a bit deeper and see what more and what else we can do to achieve work-life balance. Okay. I would like to start and go into what make work-life balancing, how can you make work-life balancing a planning habit? I mean, we plan for everything. We plan our finances, we plan our workloads, but we don't really spend much time on planning what's good for us. And how we can actually balance and create a balance with work and our life. There is a bit of a challenge here because creating work-life balance often means you have a trade-off. You are trading work for life, or you are trading life for work. And that makes it very difficult because it's a kind of 50-50. And we all know we cannot have 50% of work and 50% spending time on our life. We always feel guilty and upset if we have to do that. So there is one concept. It's a psychological concept I would like to introduce today, and it's also a concept I personally use, and that is do not really think as a trade-off. Do not really think that you have to spend 50-50. Rather think of how you can actually create work-life harmony. How can you inject your busy work life with happy habits, for example? How can you do that? And I mean, habits is one of the things that can really help you to achieve better work-life balance. And that's like really plan what is good for you. Like if you have a really, really huge workload, you have deadlines to deal with it. There is one technique I personally use, especially if I have deadlines coming up, and that is called the Pomodoro technique. It's a very simple technique. It actually comes from the kitchen timer that looks like a tomato. So this means like put that on your desk, have that, set a time for 25 minutes. And the reason why I'm not using my phone to time myself is because my phone distracts me with emails, with messages. So have that, focus 25 minutes, and then give yourself a break of 5 minutes and use that to inject balance and harmony in your work life. You can do that with a mindful moment, mindful breathing, the classical block breathing exercise, or just having a little bit of positivity, exchange a message with somebody that's really good. That is all you need. And then after 4 blocks of 25 minutes, just give yourself a break of 15 or 30 minutes. That means that that's how you can actually create or inject, how I like to call it, because balancing is a word that does not work for me. For me, it's work I have to inject myself and focus on how can I really be very productive. So habits are like a big thing to us, and 45% of our habits are they are for us, they make the decisions for you. Out of your habits, you make the decisions. So like having a plan for your habits, and I like to use, for example, keystone habits. Yeah, one of my keystone habits is I'm creating an awesome morning routine before I start my work. And that means that can be 10 minutes meditation, that can be 15 minutes yoga, but those are my keystone habits. And then the other thing is go and have some happy habits. What makes you happy? What energizes you? Those are the harmony injectors for your work-life balance. So this is one good thing, and get rid of bad habits. They are not supporting you in your work-life balance or your work-life harmony. And also, I would say gratitude is one of the biggest sources of well-being and happiness. So with gratitude, you make yourself happier at work and at home, but also the people around you. And so start with gratitude. You can also do self-gratitude. Like this is something where you have, like I have a positivity glass or positivity jar on my desk, where I just put like little notes in there and say I'm grateful that I'm a coach and that I can help other people in what they are doing. So this is one thing. And then the other thing is what I call the germs. That is like gratitude emoji messages, because we spend a lot more time virtual. We spend a lot more time on Zoom. So we do not have that personal touch and feeling we have with colleagues anymore or friends. So just use the germs. Give gratitude emoji messages to others and to yourself. And and you can send them virtually, you can send them by email, you can send them by WhatsApp. So there is a lot of things we can actually achieve for ourselves. And we need to start planning for our well-being. And well-being means we need to start planning for how can we create a work-life balance or harmony that works for us. So, and it's not one size fits all. It is like, and I would also like, that was a wake-up call for me when I heard the speech of Michelle Obama, where she said, plan for joy. Don't only plan for your finances, for your to build a house, for your holidays. Plan for your joyful moments and inject that to your daily workload. I think that is something we can all learn from, and I certainly learned a lot from that. And for me, it is like I have my harmony injections every day. They make me happy, and they make me really produce better work for me and my clients.
Julia,
okay.
Julia, you're on mute.
Yes. Thanks, Martina. And Plan for Joy. That's amazing. I've read only a bit of it, but it's by Michelle. But I think there was another book that was similar, and Plan for Joy is amazing to think that we don't do that, right?
Yeah, we just forget about it all the time. Well, because we let us be distracted by our workload, by our deadlines. So you have to reframe, you have to rethink what's good and get rid of all the, just like replace the negative things that happen to you with the positive. And it's like every day may not be good, but there's good in every day. There's positive in every day. We just have to find it and use it.
True, thank you. With that, we smoothly move on to the next talking point, which is how to assess, prioritize, and reassess or reflect after you have started or already done planning. And it's in you now, but you planning, making life balance planning a habit is not a one-time fix. So you need to, it's like a cycle. You need to do it again and again. So we come to assess, prioritize, and reassess. And for that, we have a couple of poll questions.
If I may, Julia, while they are taking the poll, I'd like to throw out a quote that I find fascinating to give them something to think about as well. If you don't know what you want, you'll end up with what you get. If you don't know what you want, you'll end up with what you get. So let's see.
You may not like it.
Exactly. Let's see what the poll comes back as. I'm not sure if I can see it here.
Yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
There it is. Wow. Sometimes, okay. Sometimes, yeah, me too. You're not alone on missing out things. And as a matter of fact, I felt this way, especially when I was working full time. I was a new mom. I was trying to be super mom. And I think a lot of us can side with the day-to-day monotony that we go through. And as a matter of fact, at my house, we actually used to have a joke that about work-life integration instead of work-life balance. But I like what Martina said about work-life harmony. It sounds a little bit better. And it does give you a different mindset. And it wasn't until about 7 years ago when I had a major life-changing event that took place that forced me to step back, take a pause and say, I was diagnosed on my son's 4th birthday with stage 3 breast cancer. And at the time it was really devastating, but there's a lot of really good things that came out of this. It really got me to ask the hard questions that we all kind of avoid or we're too busy to acknowledge. You know, am I using my time wisely? Or am I missing out on key moments? Am I going to look back and have any regrets? It also got me to think about and realize that I was languishing. This is the new buzz term of 2021. I'm not sure how many of you have heard of it, or maybe most of you have, but it's the opposite of flourishing. It basically means we're kind of stuck in limbo, or we're just kind of numb. We're like churning like a hamster on the hamster wheel, going through the motions, but not really being present or there. It really helped me to prioritize things both physically and mentally. And it gave me the opportunity to make conscious choices for a healthier lifestyle, and also for my mental well-being, so that I could accept, heal, overcome trauma and deal with new trauma. It just put things which matter the most in the front. I'm guessing that a lot of us are feeling this way right now, especially as we've just gone back down into a second lockdown. It's like any, tragic event. This thing has turned our world upside down within an instant. It's created a new normal. It's impacted every aspect of our lives, from our work. We're all sitting at home now from school. Children are home. It's stressful, but it's temporary. And even though it's temporary, it's still changed our lives forever. But good things can come out of this as well. And I want to focus on how do we turn this around into, instead of languishing, kind of being in limbo, how do we prioritize? And I think we need to identify if we're languishing or not in order to be able to prioritize what matters the most for us. Dr. Adam Grant has written a lot of articles on languishing, and he has 7 simple steps, and I'm going to try to consolidate those into hopefully about 3. We'll see how I do. The first one, as I mentioned, is you just need to assess yourself. You need to ask your question, are you languishing, flourishing, or somewhere in between? In other words, do you wake up energized to start your day, or would you rather go back to bed? Do you have a sense of purpose? Do you feel like you're choosing your time wisely? Mentally, do you feel that you're definitely not as present as you used to be? All these type of things are draining. And if you've answered yes to any of these, you're probably what we call now languishing. If you're not sure, there's a number of different self-assessments and quizzes, some of them just, even 10 questions, just to get an idea of where you feel that you are. The second simple step is, and Martina talked a little bit about the second simple step, and the third one that I'm going to talk to, which is savoring and celebrating small things and gratitude. So it's not just about big occasions that we should celebrate. That's our tendency, because we make time for those. As Martina said, sometimes we just don't make time for joy. But research shows that acknowledging small moments is also important for well-being. Savoring is about appreciating an event or an activity in the moment. It doesn't have to be a giant one. And it's also giving yourself permission to enjoy. On the gratitude side, a number of studies also show that taking time to reflect on what we're grateful for every day improves our quality of life. And creating a weekly gratitude ritual, and Martina talked about kind of the rituals that she goes through. These shouldn't be a burden. We should look at these and try to figure out, how do we create a gratitude habit, a ritual? And it can be something that you do with your family, even on a Sunday night at dinner, for example.
Yeah.
The fourth simple step is finding purpose in everyday routines. And I think this is really important. What do you look forward to? What gives you meaning? Again, research shows us that flourishing comes from everyday routines, like working on a new skill or trying something new, reaching out to people to thank them who are in your life that matter. Studies also show that reframing how you think about your job can improve your sense of satisfaction. And Martina talked to this as well. Deepening your relationship with coworkers and reminding yourself how your job contributes to the greater good can change how you think about work and how you go about that work. We think, for some reason, that in order to flourish, we have to achieve our version of whatever the Olympics is, or climb Mount Everest, or have some epic experience. But that's simply not true.
Yeah.
It's not. And if you're feeling down, you just choose a small project. It could be as simple as a 10-minute jog, or putting your earphones on, or meditation. Completing a simple, impactful task can really build a sense of accomplishment. And the fifth thing that I'm going to cover is just try something new, change your scenery. Many of us think that we need to change our circumstances, like a new job, a new car, maybe a new house. But flourishing comes from a different set of behaviors and habits. Most important, overall well-being is being interested in life, a sense of satisfaction or happiness that tends to follow that. The pandemic has really changed us because we haven't been able to pursue many of our previous interests. We've had to find new ones, or we've been forced to. The first key in feeling good about life is to seek out new interests. And according to Dr. Grant, this is according to Dr. Grant, we also, research shows that there are these, simple steps that you can take just to set the goals, as well as recharge your emotional batteries, can spark this sense of fulfillment and purpose and happiness. Because flourishing is really what people ultimately are after. Because most of you said, well, sometimes. That to me isn't, yes, I'm ready to go every morning. And so it's living the good life, whatever that is defined for you. And we usually think about flourishing as a state in which all aspects of a person's life are good, and it's really all encompassing. So the 5 things, just to recap, are assess yourself. Where are you today? Savor and celebrate the small things. Number 3, try gratitude. Number 4, find a purpose in everyday routines. Number 5, try something new. And with that, I'm going to close with another quote that's been my mantra, and I love this one. That which matters the most should never be left to that which matters the least.
Thank you.
Thank you,
a lot,
Amy.
Amy. That was really insightful. I love your 5 points. I think from 7, you made them 5. They're all so true. We moving on to, I think you also covered something where we would say it is managing your own expectations. And in some ways, you and Martina have spoken about this a bit earlier. So, but we could do a short comments on this. So let's have the poll questions. No,
I don't think there are any.
Have any poll questions. So what we can do is maybe talk about things like where we kind of take a misstep, for instance, like comparing ourselves to others and trying too hard. So I would say we need to find your own balance. So maybe if you and Martina could take a minute each to talk about this, if you'd like to.
Yeah, sure.
Sure.
Okay, who's going first?
I can go first. Yes. So I think managing your own expectations is something that can either, setting our expectations can either energize us or they can deplete us. So and we have a choice of do we want to set our positive expectations that energize us, or do we really want to go and just constantly compare ourselves to others, or even try to copy what other people do for their work-life balance? And I would say find your own strategy. And I had to learn that lesson, because I always look for role models. I always say, oh yeah, that might work for me. But I realized that really looking what works for me and what kind of sources do I have. And I would say one of my biggest sources, and what I really think is like a concept that's called create high quality connections. and a high quality connection can be created in less than 30 seconds with people you know and with people you even don't know. So for me, it is like leveling my expectations relies very strongly on my fantastic relationships I have, because they give me confidence. They give me feedback. They say, this is not your strength. Why would you even spend time on that? So the second thing I would say, focus on your strength. What are you good at? And most of the people, and it's almost as high as 80%, do not know their strength. They think actually their strength is actually a learned behavior, skills they picked up over time. So, so I would recommend take a strength assessment, and there's a free strength assessment out there by Dr. Martin Seligman. It's called the VIA Character. So it's www.viacharacter.org. So you can take your own strength and let them help you. Let your relationships help you. If you don't have them, create them. And work on your regulating your emotions and your feelings. Because if you are in a growth mindset, if you are in an agile mindset, you are able to make better decisions. You are able to really have clarity what works for you and what doesn't. So for me, I would say like use those three things to get clarity on your expectations.
Thanks, Martina. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot. Amy, you'd like to add on a few?
Just two quick things. For me, I think it's about, Martina touched on this, emotional agility. The way we deal with our emotions shapes everything that matters, our actions, our relationships, our happiness, as we've been talking about. Sometimes we have this vision of how we think things should be, and they're really not. And sometimes we need to let go of that. And it's about making trade-offs so we can prioritize things and flourish. The second thing is a tool that I found very helpful. It's vision writing. It's about getting clear. What direction do we want to go? What do we want to work towards? And inspiration. How do we align with our values? And there's just 3 simple exercises. One is rocking chair. So if I look back when I'm 90, happy and healthy over my life, that's one way to look at it. The second is get the perspective. So exercises where you detail where you want to be in 10 years, then 5, then 1, etc. And the third is a three-month vision. So exercises that you consider where you would like to be in 3 months' time. And when you do these 3 exercises in sequence, it really gives you this broad picture of from the immediate to work up to what your eventual goals are. So I think vision writing is really powerful, and there's a lot of good online tools out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks. We'll move on to how do we communicate our needs to others, or do we at all? And for that, again, we have a couple of poll questions. Okay. Pretty good for a lot of people like their jobs.
Yeah, that's good. There's not a single person doesn't like what they do. At least has at least find some positive aspect in it. That's good.
And how much work-life balance do you have? Okay, pretty good. Jeff, you'd like to comment?
Yeah, I think it's positive that people are enjoying what they're doing. I would be curious to know if that is including what they how that's sort of pivoted in the last year or so as we sort of enter enhanced phase 2 lockdown here in Singapore, right? And how that's sort of managing in the virtual world. But yeah, that ties in well with what I want to talk about in terms of communicating needs to others. And I have a couple points that I just wanted to cover. And I try to have it a little bit specific to, say, the last 18 months, 1 year, where we've sort of shifted to a more virtual world. The first thing I found success with is to have frequent communication and not letting large issues or small issues get big. When you're in an office together, right, it's easy to stop by someone's desk, catch up on your latest K-drama, your TV show, whatever you're interested in, right? You really miss those, I guess you would call them water cooler conversations when you're around the virtual world. So one thing I've found that works is try to have at least some semblance of those. You can schedule team lunches, like a virtual team lunch where you can hang out together on Zoom or Teams or whatever your virtual platform of choice is. And the meeting doesn't need to be anything other than just a social get together. Have a meal together, have a coffee together, you know, schedule these sort of mini breaks within your week. And don't be afraid to message and reach out to people about things that aren't always strictly work related. Try to get a better rapport with your teammates over these sort of virtual messaging platforms. Another important part of good communication is is to be a good listener. Communication isn't just you talking to them, but it's also receiving that. Part of that is the engagement you have with that person. I find that asking open-answered question or open-ended questions works really well. You can use kind of the Socratic method of asking questions to people to get a response. And that works quite well in terms of making sure that there's a dialogue between yourself and who you're trying to communicate with. I think it's important to start small and work your way up, right? Great public speakers, your executives, your CEOs, your site directors didn't just wake up out of bed one day and become fantastic speakers, right? They, it starts with small groups, small meetings, and you build up your trust, you build up your confidence in what you're able to speak and say in front of larger and larger groups. So, don't be afraid to speak up in some of your smaller meetings, right? I think a lot of meetings at work start with things like safety moments or Q&A. Don't let those moments be an awkward silence, volunteer even a small thing about a safety moment. Maybe it's Like an easy thing I think a lot of people do is they're on their phone when they're walking, things like that. You know, volunteer these little things and gain confidence in speaking in front of a small group, and you can use that to kind of steamroll your confidence to larger and larger groups. And the last thing I want to talk about in terms of communicating your needs and volunteering isn't just within your work platform, but also we're all here at an ISP call, right? I think joining professional societies like ISP, there's others like Toastmasters and all sorts of organizations let you kind of take a step up in volunteering in a situation that you may be quite a bit different than your normal work structure, right? So one of the things I liked about ISV early on is to be able to volunteer and get my ideas out there and get involved in different situations that even made me a little uncomfortable. So I remember back when I was asked to be the Singapore country president for ISP a few years ago, my first response was no way. I don't want to step up in front of people, talk to people, and truth be told, I'm still not an amazing public speaker by any terms, but I'm much better at it used to be, and I think it's given me a lot of opportunities to improve. Where, like for the conference, I've had a chance to speak in front of hundreds of people, where that's just not a normal situation for most folks at their work, unless you're something already at like the company director level. So I think that's what I wanted to talk about in terms of communicating needs to others. If there's any questions or messages, feel free to put it in the chat or speak up.
Jeff, I'm going to ask you to speak on the managing time also. Yeah. So we have a couple of poll questions for you, and they should come up now. Yeah.
Those are interesting poll questions. And speaking of managing time, I will go short to give Harpreet a chance to talk here. So I'll be fast on managing time while the poll questions are coming up. So just a few tips that I'd like to share is be very protective of your calendar. Most organizations now are very focused on your calendar, whether it's a Google or Outlook or whatever platform you use. Don't be afraid to reject meeting invites. A lot of people will invite more people than they need. If you don't have a clear agenda in the meeting or you don't see a point, I do recommend when you do that, don't just reject out of hand. There's decline with a message, let them know why you're not able to. Like, I don't feel this is applicable to me. I have another meeting scheduled. I need to do this. Also, when it comes to your calendar, you can set up meetings just with yourself. So if you need a 2-hour block of time during the day where you don't want people to interrupt you, schedule that and book it for yourself so people can't book that time for you and it's already protected. And I do that quite a bit also with recurring meetings, just with myself. So I'll set up 15 minutes every week to go through a timesheet or expenses or whatever tasks that I want to do. And lastly, I like using, I'll stay platform agnostic, but a few that I've used is Klaxoon, Microsoft Planner, Trello is good. You can use these to prioritize your tasks to make sure that you know what you need to get done during the day over a longer period of time as well. I recommend highly using one of these online platforms that you can set up tasks and manage through there. So with that, I'll end my session here, and feel free to send me a message if you have any questions.
Thanks, Jeff. Thank you. Harpreet, I'm going to ask you to talk on the timeout. So we have 2 poll questions here, and they should be up straight away. And while they're doing this, I'd like to, we haven't yet got any questions, so we have a little time, but we still running behind, and I didn't rush everybody because since there aren't any questions yet, unless they suddenly come in.
Thanks, Julia. I'll try to keep it short too.
Yeah, okay.
I think timeouts are definitely very, very important considering we are working in a virtual world now. I would say we don't no more have the physical offices and we are strictly sticking to the desktop and the screens. Time off is very critical. And just to share with everyone, before this session, I had a 5 minutes dance with my daughter on Shake It Off.
Lovely.
So that helps me to reset. I literally do that every day with my kids. Around 4 or 5 p.m. we'll either play as Autobots or either dance off some activity even for 5 or 10 minutes. At least it'll help me to take off the things from the office from off my mind. And I'll be able to focus on them at least. At least they don't feel like I'm sticking to the laptop only. So I would say it's really important. Now that is the we time, I would say. But apart from that, I would say you need your me time too. Right. So it's not about looking at the family only. You need to look after yourself also. So considering it's a lot of work around now, you may be having some colleagues who are sending you emails in the middle of the night or somewhere. So I would say you shouldn't feel obligated to reply to those emails unless it's really a critical end of the world issue. Yeah, then you must. But if it is not something that it needs immediate attention, I would say you shouldn't be bothering about them. So you have to set your boundaries, and timeout is one thing that will help you to set those boundaries. You need to be aware, like when is the time to be, okay, time out now. I really need to reset my own brain at the moment. Yeah, and I really don't feel bad when I don't reply to the emails during the time off, because sometimes, yes, you need to reply, but sometimes you can really let it go. It's not that critical. Again, I would say it depends on the managers, even the peers also. We need to lead by example. So it shouldn't be like you are sending emails in the middle of the night and expecting everyone to reply in the night immediately. We shouldn't inculcate such culture, especially in these times. Mental peace is much more important.
True. Is it okay if we move on to creating a supportive, productive workstation? Because I think you're going to speak on this and we just have a word cloud on this. So
yeah, sure.
If that works, yeah.
So I think you can scan the QR code, which will lead you to the question and you can type in your answers. And then if you do this now with your handphone, I will then afterwards share.
We're all very good with these QR codes now.
Yeah, practice for 2 years now.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone has scanned the QR code. I will now move to the word cloud. So are you able to type your answers? Oh, there you go. Can you see the word cloud?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Okay.
I can see flexibility to be the
Right.
topmost.
And I think that's so true, right? Because
Yeah,
it's not about hours of work.
right. So again, it goes back to my previous point that we should focus on the productivity rather than the length of the time we spend on the systems. It shouldn't be about how long you have been working. It should be how productive you are. Some days,
Yeah.
maybe you have to work longer than the normal, but the next day, maybe you can just finish it off in half a day.
Yeah.
So yes, flexibility is really important. I think with this pandemic, somewhat it has been inculcated into our culture now. Working culture is already getting adapt to it. Work from home, flexible timings. And another thing that I feel myself being a mother was that there should be a support for the parents too. So especially the women, when they become the mothers, they are sometimes have to, sacrifice some of their career opportunities because they have to look up at the young ones. So they have to sacrifice some of the opportunities. So I think there should be a support for the new parents, equally for the men also, because then they don't feel like, oh, I had to let go an opportunity because I had to take care of my kids and all. So for my case, I approached my company's HR and I requested them, like, I'll continue with my job. I won't be quitting it with my 2 kids, but I would need a flexibility where I'll be working 3 days from office and 2 days from home. So these are the things when normal working days, when before the pandemic, where we had this flexibility. And it was really something hard to talk about at that time, asking for this kind of arrangement. But still, I was thankful that they were ready to accept that arrangement. So yeah, and again, then there is something that I request my manager and even my peers, to everyone, to be like, you don't really need to prove your productivity by sending emails late in the night. It won't matter if you send a 2 pages long email in the middle of the night. You can send me a one-liner within 1 hour in the morning. It's equally fine. So as they say, no one leave, like they say, no man leaves the office unless the boss leaves first. So it shouldn't be like that. The leaders should be the one who should be leading by an example. They should be having a proper support for their employees. They should be empowered. If they think that the employees are lacking somewhere, they need some skill set enhancements, they should be talking to their manager. There should be a feedback for there should be some sessions with their peers or their leaders to hear about their needs, about their skill enhancements, or maybe sometimes they need some mental kind of support. Maybe they need somebody to talk about it. So those are the kind of I think, flexibility, empowerment, support. Those are the things that the company can help to support the employees. And especially with the current times, they shouldn't be, I think, requesting everyone to take the holidays. Now, considering nobody can take the holidays, we can't go anywhere, asking everyone to take the holidays is like another burnout. People will take it just for the sake of losing it.
Oh.
Yeah, so yeah.
Thanks, Harpreet. Thank you very much. Jeff, you have young kids, so I thought I'll put this to you, because I mean, often people say that organizing your family is more difficult than organizing people at work. So, any tips?
Wow. No, I went. That's a great. That's a great saying. I think that's quite accurate, actually. I mean, one of the particular challenges with kids right now is schools, right? Home-based learning. My younger daughter is 5, and the older one is 12, who's a bit more self-sustaining at this point. But it's I think it's about going back to managing time, managing your tasks during the day, taking breaks. I like the idea of having the timer that goes off, and don't be afraid to engage with your family during the day. I don't think it works very well just to block yourself off and kind of treat it like you're in an office where you're away right? Obviously, you need periods of the time during the day where you're not have total access to everyone coming up to you. But you know, after 1 or 2 hour meeting, don't be afraid to stretch your legs out, go see what they're watching on TV, how their school is going. Take walks if you can during the day, and I think that helps out quite a bit.
Okay, thank you. We have just a couple of minutes, and in that, I think I can put in, we don't have any questions, I think, as far as I can see. I don't see any questions. So can I just make a quick question? This may require a little bit of explaining. All right, let's take an easy one. How creative can one be in getting your daily, weekly dose of exercise, besides walking up and down the stairs? At work, it means, or during this time. Who wants to take it? A quick, simple answer. Anybody who exercises or not? Amy, you want to say something?
Oh, I do exercise, but look, I do find it interesting now. A lot more of us are trying to do conference calls like on the go, so to speak. I see a lot of it when I'm out biking or walking. So it's a different, it's that kind of change of scenery a little bit that I talked about as well. And I think that's important to have that change of scenery, especially now, again, as everybody is kind of back at home, and it can feel a little bit claustrophobic at times. While it's great, it's also sometimes hard to manage, 24/7. So that's one creative way that I see people out and about and actually doing. They're taking a walk while they're actually on, their conference calls.
Yeah. Okay. I think we have done time-wise, and so we need to consolidate. And I think summary-wise, I'll do a summary in one sentence. And here I find that you can. Is that my laptop? Can you hear that? All right.
Yes.
Okay. I think finding more balance in our lives is easier when we stop worrying about it and go about it like normal. You prioritize, you assess, and you reprioritize, or you implement all in. This is when it becomes a habit. And I think it's easier then to all the time, whether consciously or unconsciously, you are creating more balance in your life. With that, I think I'd like to say thank you to everybody. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience. And let me see. No, there are definitely no questions. I was looking to see if there were any last minute questions. There aren't any. So thanks, guys. Anything else? Any of the participants want to say something? You still have time, though I think we are 2 minutes off. All right.
I just want to say thank you, Julia, for moderating. Thank you, Harshita, Christina, Linda, who helped prepare. And take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, just a quick message for everyone. Our next session will be in conjunction with ISP Singapore Online Conference, which is on 25th of August from 4:30 to 5:30 p.m. And the focus of the discussion would be charting your career goals. So this pretty much seems to be aligned with what Amy mentioned earlier, like planning your vision. So I think this could be a good amplified session on what she touched on. So yeah, looking forward to see you all.
Okay, with that we close. Thank you again, Martina, Harpreet, Geoffrey.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Take care.
Take care, everybody. Yes.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.